Some places on Earth are guarded with an almost sacred devotion, and the Vatican's secret archives are among the most protected. Long ago, a figure dressed in religious robes wandered those silent corridors, discovering secrets penned in faded ink and hidden beneath centuries of history. What he uncovered was not the stuff of legend or fantasy. Rather, it was a truth that struggled to find a voice. If these enigmas intrigue you, don't forget to subscribe. Now let yourself be guided into the hush where ancient tales linger, waiting for those who truly listen. The moon hovered above Rome, bathing the Vatican's walls in a pale, silvery light. The city's outer streets had grown silent, the last echoes of the day fading away. Within those formidable walls, all seemed motionless, yet beneath the marble and stone, life quietly persisted. Descending deeper, past worn steps, the air grew chillier, the light more subdued, and the aroma of old leaves mingled with melted wax drifted like a ghost. I had walked these corridors before, but always with others. Tonight, I was alone. My footsteps echoed louder than usual, as if every sound dared the emptiness to respond. Before me loomed a doorway, larger than any I'd seen. Iron hooks supported a weight that felt heavier than mere wood. It was whispered that behind this door lay 2 millennia of collective memory. To unlock it, 3 keys were required, each protected by a different guardian. When the final lock released, the door groaned, as if rousing from a centuries-long slumber. Beyond, a shadowy corridor stretched out, lined with shelves that soared into darkness. The air was dense, not stagnant, but alive with the silent presence of countless echoes from ages past. These were not the tales recited in public or printed in textbooks. Here were undelivered letters, maps of vanished settlements, records penned so delicately the ink seemed to shimmer. Many documents were wrapped in leather softened by time, others in cloth concealing their covers. The official Latin title is Archivum Secretum Apostolicum Vaticanum. Secretum here means private, not secret in the modern sense. Yet in that stillness, privacy blurred into enigma. Only a select few are granted entry, and even fewer are permitted into the deepest chambers. 53 miles of shelving wind through this archive, holding more than 35,000 volumes. Each book is a portal to a specific moment. A pope's hurried note during a crisis, a treaty sealed in flickering candlelight between long-lost kingdoms, a scholar's desperate plea to save his work from being branded heresy. As I pressed on, the dust thickened, muffling the air and swallowing every sound. The temperature dipped, just enough to raise goosebumps. Somewhere in that quiet, I almost imagined the faint rustle of a page, as if a vigilant presence was at work in another aisle. I knew this was only the beginning. Deeper still were rooms forbidden to all, doors without names, drawers without labels. Even at the edge of the known, the weight of centuries became tangible, and suddenly everything made sense. These archives were not just a chronicle of history, they were guardians of secrets the world was never meant to uncover. The story of Mary Magdalene has flickered through the ages like a candle's flame in a dark corridor. Her name appears in the Gospels, sometimes as a witness to sacred events, sometimes as a figure shrouded in confusion. She was present during Jesus' teachings, at his suffering, and at dawn when the stone was rolled away from the tomb. It is in this closeness that her mystery takes root. For generations the Church has shaped her image. In sermons and art she was cast as the redeemed sinner, hair unbound, eyes brimming with tears. Yet the oldest texts, written in fragile ink on parchment, tell a different story. Some depict her not as a fallen woman, but as a steadfast companion, perhaps one of the most influential voices in early Christianity. In ancient manuscripts unearthed in Egypt's sands, she is portrayed as someone who grasped Jesus' teachings more deeply than most. The notion that Mary Magdalene held significant authority was difficult for later church leaders to accept. in an era when spiritual power was reserved for men. The idea that a woman might have been a central teacher, perhaps even chosen to lead after Christ's death, was dangerous. Such a narrative could have transformed the very foundation of spiritual leadership. Rumours persist of documents in the Vatican archives that present this alternative image of Mary. These are not displayed or discussed in public. They remain sealed, their contents seen by only a handful. Some researchers claim to have glimpsed letters and gospel fragments that cast her in a much brighter light than the Church has ever acknowledged. Why would the Vatican fear such a story? Perhaps because, if the truth diverged from the version repeated for centuries, it would prompt questions about other aspects of history. It would make believers wonder what else had been altered, softened, or concealed. It could have shifted the balance of power in ways the hierarchy was unprepared to handle. Over time, Mary Magdalene's image was carefully managed, with each pope reinforcing the same narrative. Yet, in the quietest corners of the archives, the other Mary endures. Her story hasn't vanished. It's simply locked away, like so many other truths beneath the Vatican's marble floors. When candlelight falls upon those pages, it's as if she still speaks, waiting for her voice to be heard once more. Some insist her voice was never truly silenced. In certain monasteries and among small circles of scholars, copies of ancient texts have been discreetly shared, their pages worn from careful study. These are not the grand Bibles displayed on gilded altars, but humble manuscripts, often translated from Greek or Coptic fragments. They describe Mary not as a background figure, but as someone who dared to ask questions others would not. She is shown debating with the other disciples, sometimes even rebuking them. One text, known as the Gospel of Mary, recounts a moment after Jesus' death. His followers were frightened and uncertain. Mary stepped forward, calming their fears and reminding them of his teachings. This alone challenged the Church's later narrative. It depicted a woman leading when men faltered, an image that clashed with the later structure where authority flowed only through men. Over time, the story from the pulpit changed. In 691, Pope Gregory delivered a sermon that forever linked Mary Magdalene to the unnamed sinful woman who washed Jesus' feet. From then on, she was remembered mainly for her supposed sins, not her potential leadership. A simple shift in words was enough to shape the beliefs of generations. The Vatican archives hold more than theological treatises and diplomatic agreements. They preserve the delicate balance of historical memory. To maintain that balance, certain documents are hidden in the deepest vaults, where the light is faint and the air smells of wood and dust. Scholars granted access may spend years searching for a single page. Their requests for specific manuscripts are often quietly denied, without explanation. If the public were to see those pages, they might recognize Mary Magdalene as a teacher, equal to Peter, chosen to spread the message without fear. This would mean acknowledging that, from the very beginning, faith could have been broader, more inclusive, and perhaps less controlled than it became. It would mean that the very roots of power could be questioned, and so her complete story remains behind stone walls, in a place where time seems to stand still. The shelves are silent, but the air is heavy with the secrets they hold. Somewhere in the quiet, Mary Magdalene's name rests on the spine of a cracked book. Her story is still there, waiting for the day the locks are undone, and her voice can rise again, no longer feared, but finally heard. There are old tales of priests who long ago claimed to have seen those hidden pages. They spoke of them in whispers, not in sermons, but on quiet nights by candlelight. One described a manuscript so delicate it had to be turned with a feather, its edges crumbling at the slightest touch. It contained a conversation between Mary and the disciples, where she spoke of visions and teachings given only to her. In those passages, she was not a follower in the shadows, but a guide whose insight surpassed theirs. The priests who whispered these things understood the risk of repeating them. The Church had built a strong tradition, and any crack in that wall could widen. To suggest that Mary was more than a penitent sinner, to claim that truths denied to others were entrusted to her, would have meant reimagining everything, from art to liturgy. It would also have meant confronting the possibility that a voice silenced 2,000 years ago was deliberately suppressed. Some believe the fear of her story was not just because she was a woman, it was about the idea of a direct connection to Jesus without the Church's mediation. If Mary could share his teachings directly, if she could comfort and guide others in his name without a man's approval, she represented a more personal faith, less bound by later structures. It's said that in the early 20th century, some scholars requested access to these documents and were quietly refused. One, in a letter now stored elsewhere in the archives, wrote that he was told certain truths would do more harm than good if revealed. He gave no details, but those who have studied his words believe he referred to Mary's writings. In the silence of the Vatican's deepest vaults, the truth about her remains sealed, suspended in history. It holds the power to reshape how millions understand the origins of their faith. But until the locks are broken and the seals removed, her image will remain the one sculpted by centuries of sermons and stained glass. Perhaps one day, when the doors are thrown open and the dust stirs, the Mary Magdalene who emerges will not be the sinner of legend, but the teacher whose voice was strong enough to endure centuries of silence. Until then, her shadow glides quietly along the shelves, a presence sensed but never fully seen. Some who have worked in the archives say her presence is felt not just in the manuscripts, but in the very atmosphere. They describe walking between the shelves and feeling as if someone stands just behind them, not threatening, but attentive. An old caretaker once confided that her story felt like a sealed letter on a desk, its edges curled with age, longing to be opened. There are also paintings. In certain storage rooms, hidden from public view, hang works never displayed in the Vatican's galleries. Some depict Mary Magdalene not as a penitent, but as a dignified figure, her face calm and resolute. In one, she addresses a small group, a scroll in her hand, her gaze meeting the viewers as if daring them to question why this image was never shown. The fear of her, some say, was not just about her influence as a woman. It was because she reminded them that the early faith may have been more egalitarian than later centuries allowed. If her leadership was genuine, if her authority came directly from Jesus, then no council, no hierarchy, no chain of command could erase that fact. Revealing it would have meant rewriting not only Mary's story, but the Church's history itself. Legend has it that in the late 1800s, a handful of scholars were granted a single hour to examine a codex believed to be part of the Gospel of Mary. They were watched by guards and an archivist who never left their side. When their time ended, the manuscript was locked away again. None of those scholars ever spoke publicly about what they saw, but a letter later surfaced in a private collection. It contained a single line: "The truth is more beautiful and more dangerous than we imagined." Within the archive's silence, time seems to dissolve. Pages written nearly 2,000 years ago feel as alive as the day they were penned. In that stillness, one wonders if Mary's story survives not only in the words left behind, but in the quiet persistence of her memory. Perhaps one day the doors will open and the world will see the whole truth. Until then, the Vatican keeps her story where it has always been, in the shadowy heart of its archives, where the air smells of parchment and beeswax, and Mary Magdalene's voice waits, untouched by time. Some say her voice echoes even in the prayers of those who do not know her name, a silent force in the faith of countless women, a resilience passed down like an invisible legacy. It's as if, over 2 millennia, her story has found ways to survive beyond the walls that confine it. In the hills of Provence, France, ancient caves are said to have sheltered Mary Magdalene in solitude and prayer. Pilgrims still climb there, leaving candles in the damp stone hollows. They whisper prayers to a figure they see not as fallen, but as sacred. In the archives, her name appears in many tongues. The priest once remarked that letting such stories circulate wouldn't destroy faith, but it could forever alter its foundation. There's a subtle irony here. A tale meant to remain secret has become one of the Vatican's most quietly discussed enigmas. Academics, pilgrims, and even some believers carry it as rumour and speculation, fragments of a larger truth glimpsed in reflection. The Church's silence doesn't erase the story, it only deepens its shadow, making its outline more visible to those who pay attention. Beyond the archives, her name still surfaces in prayers, in art, and in churches that bear her name. Yet these are sanitized versions, softened by the passage of time, with her influence and authority carefully diminished. But within the archives, the other Mary lingers. She remains a presence, preserved not just by ink and parchment, but by the very act of concealment. Sooner or later, whether by intention or accident, those documents will be revealed. And when they are, the Mary Magdalene who emerges may not match the world's expectations. She may not be remembered for the scent of precious oil, but for the enduring strength of someone entrusted with the greatest secrets, waiting patiently for her voice to be heard again. Among the archivists, there's a sense that her moment will arrive. Mysteries have a way of slipping past even the most guarded barriers. Throughout history, every locked door has eventually been opened by authority or by the persistence of those who refuse to leave questions unanswered. Mary Magdalene's story is like one of those doors just before dawn, when the Vatican gardens are utterly still. A faint heartbeat pulses beneath the stone. Somewhere deep inside, a single lamp glows on a desk where an archivist works alone, turning pages untouched for decades. His fingers trace the lines, perhaps pausing where Mary's voice rises from the parchment, speaking boldly of love, without fear, and truth without boundaries. He may feel the same gentle pull that has tempted so many before him, the urge to reveal what he guards. But habit is a heavy burden. The archivist closes the book, wraps it in cloth, and returns it to its shelf. He walks the corridors, past locked doors, each one closing with a final click. The secret remains, but the world outside is changing. Archaeologists continue to unearth new finds in deserts and ruins. Scholars reinterpret ancient texts once thought lost, and believers are more willing than ever to question the stories they've inherited. Each new discovery chips away at the stone encasing Mary's hidden truth. For the Vatican, the question is no longer if her story can be kept silent, but for how much longer. Some church historians quietly acknowledge that revealing her story could bring both admiration and controversy. At the right moment, it could enrich faith rather than threaten it. Until then, her presence lingers in the archives like the scent of extinguished candles. Those who have walked those halls say it's impossible not to think of her, impossible not to imagine her footsteps echoing in the same space. The walls have heard her name for centuries, and will continue to do so, whether spoken aloud or whispered in the dark. Somewhere in the cold, deep air of those basements, her story waits, with a patience older than the walls themselves, ready for the day when the last lock yields and the truth is revealed. Stories circulate among Vatican staff of a night when the locks nearly opened for her. In the mid-20th century, a French scholar passing through was granted unusual access. He had spent decades studying early Christian texts and chasing rumours of Mary Magdalene's lost writings. For reasons never explained, the archivists allowed him into a special room, windowless and maze-like. He stayed for hours. No one knows exactly what he read, but when he emerged, he was pale and trembling, as if he had carried something fragile. He spoke little, telling a colleague only that what he saw had changed his understanding of the early church forever. He returned to France and never published again. After his death, a sealed packet was found among his belongings. The Vatican claimed it immediately. Its contents remain unknown. Such tales drift through the halls in hushed tones. Many are forgotten, but some linger like a persistent shadow. Older archivists know these mysteries are part of life in the archives. They have learned to live with them, to guard them, to accept that some truths will never be spoken aloud. Mary's story is one of these. It rests in a delicate balance. On one side, the admiration that could flourish if her true voice were heard. On the other, the fear of what might happen if centuries-old foundations were seen from a new perspective. At night, the archives resemble a sleeping city, the shelves like narrow streets, the manuscripts like houses protecting their secrets. Somewhere along these silent corridors, Mary waits, not as a statue or painting, but as words carefully written and preserved. She's waited through empires, through the rise and fall of rulers, through the succession of popes. Perhaps she will wait many more years, or perhaps the next person to open that cedar drawer will leave it open. When that day comes, the world will hear her as she truly was, clear, strong, untouched by the dust of centuries, and the long silence will finally break, the air of the archives feeling lighter, as if a long-awaited presence had stepped into the light. Some believe the silence is already beginning to crack, in subtle, almost invisible ways. Recently, fragments of early Christian texts discovered far from Rome have begun to echo what is said to rest in the Vatican's depths. Scholars in Egypt, Israel, and even the deserts of Jordan have found papyri describing Mary Magdalene not as a penitent sinner, but as a pillar of the early faith. These fragments are incomplete, worn and missing lines, but what remains carries a sense of authority and trust in her words. For those familiar with the Vatican archives, such discoveries feel like faint signals from deep underground. They don't reveal everything, but they keep curiosity alive. Each new find outside the walls raises a question. If so much can be learned from these remnants, what might still lie hidden in the cedar drawers, untouched for centuries? The Church moves cautiously. Tradition is a slow-moving river, but even the slowest river eventually carves through stone, and history's constant flow always erodes the barriers built to contain it. Some within the Vatican may already be quietly discussing the right moment to let Mary's voice be heard. It's easy to imagine that day, a formal announcement in a grand hall beneath a gilded ceiling, the air thick with anticipation as archivists present a small, well-preserved box. Inside, a manuscript, its ink faded but legible, its script from another era. Cameras flash, scholars lean in, and the first translated lines spread across the world. Until then, the truth exists in the space between knowledge and ignorance. The archives keep their silence, the doors remain closed, and Mary's story is like a lantern hidden beneath a cloak, its light still burning, visible only to those nearby. In the quietest corners of the Vatican, the same air has circulated for centuries, brushing past book spines, over maps that no longer match the world, over unsent letters. Somewhere among them, in a drawer known to only a few, lies the voice of a woman whose place in history was altered but never erased. Perhaps that is why she waits, patient and unafraid, knowing that truth does not fade in darkness but grows stronger. Some archivists say this growing strength can almost be felt in certain rooms. There is one, deep in the oldest part of the Vatican, where the ceiling arch is low and the stone walls are damp with age. The light is dim and golden, cast by lamps that have replaced candles but still leave soft shadows. The air is heavy, layered by centuries of breath. Here, it is said, the most complete account of Mary rests. The cedar drawer is not isolated, but sits among hundreds of others, each holding a piece of history that could change our understanding of the past. Yet those who work here always speak of that one drawer as if it were alive, as if the story inside knows it is waiting. Some clergy believe that when the time is right, this truth will emerge effortlessly, almost as if guided. It's a quiet faith, not discussed in official meetings, but whispered between tasks in the empty halls. They say that no matter how tightly the church locks things away, history always finds a way to reveal itself. Mary's name appears again and again in public records, always in the same familiar form, shaped by centuries of repetition. But the Mary of the archives may be different, a woman who stood firm in doubt, who spoke with a voice that needed no permission, who brought teachings directly from the one she followed. Perhaps this is the real fear, that the early church was more open, more communal, less bound by rules than later centuries allowed. If such an image became widely known, it wouldn't destroy faith, but it would force a new perspective. For now, the drawer stays closed, the story remains in the shadows. But shadows shift as the earth turns, and one day light may fall on those pages. Until then, Mary Magdalene waits in the stillness of the archives, her presence bound in ink and leather, her voice silent but whole. And in that silence, the promise of her truth lingers like the scent of a candle long extinguished, ready to be lit again. They say that in the deepest parts of the archives, time seems to slow. Hours stretch, as if each moment expands to fill the stillness of the stone walls. Far from the city's noise, subtle details become noticeable. The faint rustle of a page turned in another room, the soft whisper of air through vents, the way dim light falls unevenly, leaving some corners in darkness. In one of these corners, beyond the usual paths, the cedar drawer is kept. Few approach it without purpose. Those who have touched it say the wood feels warm, as if it remembers the hands that have opened it over the centuries. Archivists never discuss its contents, but their eyes change when it's mentioned. They look away, not with guilt, but with the careful restraint of someone who knows a story they cannot share. The truth in that drawer may not shatter faith, it may deepen it. But deep truths always have the power to unsettle the structures built around them. Mary Magdalene's story could invite believers to see her not as a silent witness, but as a central figure chosen to guide others after the resurrection. This alone would change how history remembers her, and in turn, how the Church sees itself. Occasionally, whispers circulate within the Vatican about a plan to release parts of her story. These rumours fade quickly, never becoming action, yet the thought persists, even among those who dare not speak it. Perhaps the faithful are ready, perhaps the world would welcome her voice after so many years of silence. For now, the drawer remains closed. The archives will continue to guard their silence, and the dust will settle as always. But every story, no matter how long it is hidden, eventually finds the light. Mary's voice may have been pressed between pages for nearly 2,000 years, but voices like hers do not disappear. Somewhere, beyond the locked doors, she waits, not impatiently, but with the quiet certainty that truth cannot be buried forever. When the time comes, her words will rise from the silence, crossing centuries like a... In those rare instances when trust allows us to speak openly, people say that history moves to its own rhythm, a rhythm that can't be hurried, but also can't be stopped. The cedar box is said to be part of that rhythm, holding its own note, waiting for the right moment to join the melody. Yet, there are some who worry about what might happen when the story is finally revealed. Not because they question its beauty or truth, but because they understand that truth can shake the very foundations built to contain it. If the voice of Mary Magdalene were ever fully heard, it could transform centuries of understanding. Even if her message was only about peace and love, it might challenge the established ideas of authority. Still, it's hard to believe her voice could be protected for 2 millennia only to remain silent forever. The fact that her writings have survived wars, theft, fires, and shifts in power feels like a promise, even if it was never spoken aloud. It's a promise that, when the time is right, the world will have the chance to hear her once more. Until that day, she lingers in the stillness of the archives, her presence mingling with the quiet hum of the place. The box remains where it always has, warmed by the slow passage of time, surrounded by other secrets, but unique in the minds of those who know of it. And outside those closed doors, life in the city continues. Bells ring in the distance, footsteps echo in marble corridors, candles flicker in chapels where her image remains in the shadows. One day, those shadows will lift, her words will be spoken, and the centuries separating her era from ours will vanish like mist on a Sunday morning. When that day comes, the silence around Mary Magdalene won't feel like a conclusion. It will be the held breath before a long-awaited answer. And when that answer arrives, it may not change the world overnight. Truth often works quietly, slipping into whispered conversations at dinner tables, in prayers murmured at night, in the thoughts of those who wander beneath the stars. Some will recognize her words instantly, as if the voice on the page is one they've always known. Others will wrestle with them, turning them over in their minds like a stone in their hands, unsure if they're ready to accept what they're hearing. Within the Vatican, the news of such a revelation would drift through the marble corridors like a gentle but persistent breeze. Scholars from around the globe would gather, eager to examine the manuscript firsthand. Discussions would arise in hushed voices, in libraries and study rooms, not with anger, but with the deep, quiet curiosity that only a true mystery can inspire. The documents would seem lighter, as if opening the box had released a breath held for centuries. And for those who have always cherished her, Mary Magdalene's voice would bring something both ancient and new. She would no longer be known only through the words of others, but through her own thoughts, her own rhythm. Her presence would step out of paintings and stained glass, no longer frozen in a single moment of sorrow or adoration, but walking beside us like a living teacher from the past. For now, though, all of this remains a possibility. The box stays closed, the key protected, the scent of old paper and cedar wood lingering in that dim corner, waiting. Time moves on, as it always has in the archives, slow, patient, inevitable. Mary's story has already lasted nearly 2,000 years. It can wait a little longer. But there's a sense that this waiting is almost over, that history's rhythm is building toward the moment when the lock will turn and the truth will be revealed. And when that happens, her voice won't burst forth as a shout from the darkness, but will arrive like morning sunlight streaming into a room, gentle, steady, impossible to ignore. Perhaps this was always how her story was meant to return, not as a battle, but as a light that touches the edges of what we know and reveals things we hadn't seen before. When her voice comes, it won't erase centuries of tradition that have supported faith. Instead, it will sit alongside them, helping us see her words in a broader context. We might sense not just the presence of a follower, but the closeness of a friend, someone who walked at the beginning of a movement that would spread across the world. In the quiet of the archives, this possibility feels alive. That cedar box is more than a container, it's a threshold. Beyond its dark, polished wood lies the meeting point between what we think we know and what has been waiting. Those who have stood before it say they can almost hear the silence of another age, as if the parchment inside still remembers the sound of her hand upon it. It's easy to imagine such a treasure remaining hidden forever, that layers of locks and tradition could keep it safe for all time. But history always finds a way to be heard. The seas have returned lost ships, deserts have revealed buried cities, and libraries have recovered texts thought destroyed. If Mary's voice truly rests in that box, it will eventually surface. When it does, it won't arrive with violence or uproar, but with the quiet certainty of a seed breaking through the earth. Her words won't tear down what has been built over centuries, but will offer a wider perspective, a deeper understanding of how faith took shape in its earliest days. Those who listen may discover that the truth was never as distant as they believed, but simply waiting for the right moment to emerge from the shadows and become part of humanity's shared story. Desert sands have revealed forgotten cities. Libraries thought lost have reappeared, untouched beneath centuries of dust. In the face of such wonders, even the deepest vaults of the Vatican may one day open. When that day comes, it won't be about exposing the unknown, but about completing a picture that has always been incomplete. Believers will gather again, prayers will rise as always, but perhaps with a broader understanding of that first circle of followers and the woman who held their hearts. Until then, her spirit fills the air of those silent corridors. Archivists pass by the compartment as they go about their duties, keys jangling at their sides, the weight of the mystery always present in their minds. Beyond those ancient stone walls, pilgrims continue to kneel before images of Mary Magdalene, candles burning at her feet. No one knows exactly what lies behind those locks, yet many sense, in a way that can't be spoken, that the story isn't finished. The silence then continues, but it's not an empty silence. It's the pause before truth reveals itself, the held breath before the first word is spoken. One day, that breath will be released, and the world will hear her, as it always should have, clearly, confidently, not fragmented by thousands of years. In that moment, the centuries separating her time from ours will seem to dissolve, leaving only her true presence. Readers will lean over the pages, following her words with their eyes, feeling the rhythm of a voice that once spoke beneath open skies and in gatherings lit by flickering torches. There will be no doubt about the intimacy of her thoughts, about the sense that they were meant to pass from one soul to another. Her story won't arrive with the harshness of accusation or the weight of judgment. Instead, it will flow like spring water, seeking the depths, filling them gradually, touching everything along the way. People will recognize her not just as the woman at the tomb or the figure in old paintings, but as a teacher who preserved the message when the world around her trembled with fear and uncertainty. Her image, flowing robes, bowed head, will remain, but alongside it will be the Mary who spoke with conviction, who guided gently, and who carried her teacher's trust in a way no one else could. For the Church, the release of such a voice could bring both joy and unease. Joy, because it strengthens the roots of faith. Unease, because it asks believers to broaden their understanding of spiritual leadership and collective memory. But over time, unease fades if truth is welcomed, and joy grows when it's nourished by something genuine. In the days after her words are revealed, the Vatican archives will remain as they always have, vast, silent, filled with the scent of old paper and seasoned wood. The cedar compartment, now empty, will no longer attract curious glances. Its purpose will have been fulfilled, but the air in that corner will feel lighter, as if the very stones had been holding their breath for centuries and finally exhaled. Mary's voice will no longer belong to a guarded compartment in a quiet room. It will belong to the world, passing through the hands of scholars, woven into sermons, whispered in the night prayers of the faithful. On this journey it will finally find its rightful place in history, not as a shadow behind the apostles, but as a light among them. The archives will continue to guard many other secrets, but this one will have found its way home. And anyone who hears it will understand that some truths, no matter how long they are hidden, never disappear. They simply wait for the right moment to reappear. Perhaps the most surprising thing will be how natural her return feels after the initial wonder and curiosity. Her voice will seem as if it has always been part of the great tapestry of faith. Her words will be read alongside familiar scriptures, and instead of a rupture, there will be a seam, a missing thread returning to its place. In chapels and halls her phrases will echo, their rhythm blending gently with prayers. Artists will once again depict her, not just as the figure at the foot of the cross, but in conversation, teaching, listening, and walking among those who seek her as a mentor. Her image will become more complete, no longer confined to a single role or moment. In her, people will see both the devotion they have always known and the strength they have long sensed. Even the Vatican will feel this change. Publishing her writings won't erase centuries of tradition, but it will leave a subtle, lasting mark on how the Church tells its own story. In lessons and sermons, her name will carry new authority, not just as a symbol of redemption, but as a witness to the first heartbeat of faith. Some will call it a gift, others a challenge, but most will see it as both. And in the quiet rooms where the cedar compartment once lay, archivists will continue their work, moving among shelves and drawers still filled with the past. Visitors will walk the halls, perhaps unaware that one of the most protected voices in Christian history once rested there. Only the archivists will notice its absence, not as a loss, but as a space that has finally fulfilled. In this way, her long period of waiting will gain a significance that transcends her own story. It will stand as evidence that truth has its own timing, and when that moment arrives, nothing, not even centuries of silence, can prevent it from being revealed. Once it is heard, it will continue on, illuminating the way for all who search for it. Her words will become part of a quiet legacy of faith, handed down not in locked boxes, but through open hands. Families will pass them along through generations, spoken in kitchens lit by candlelight or whispered as bedtime stories. They will become woven into the fabric of daily life. They will be read before journeys, recited at gravesides, murmured in moments of fear. Over time, no one will recall exactly when they became so familiar, as if they had always been present. Artists and writers will draw inspiration from her voice. They will create new songs, poems, and paintings, bringing her presence into a new light. Scholars will continue to analyse her words, but beyond academic debates, there will be something more profound, a personal bond between her voice and the listener. People will see her not just as a biblical figure, but as a companion whose thoughts accompany them through their own challenges and joys. Within the Vatican, the tale of the cedar compartment will be shared in whispers among archivists, part fact and part legend. They will recount how it sat in its corner for centuries, safeguarding a truth destined to reach far beyond the walls that sheltered it. To visitors, the space it once occupied may seem unremarkable, but for those in the know, it will be a spot marked by the patience of history. Her words will also begin to reshape how believers envision the Church's earliest days. The origins will no longer appear as a narrow path, but as a circle of voices, diverse, equally devoted, united by a common goal. In that circle, Mary Magdalene will no longer be on the margins, but at the centre, speaking with the authority that came from her closeness to the teacher whom all followed. The centuries of silence will not be erased, but their meaning will shift. Rather than a scar, they will be remembered as the deep, steady breath before a truth was ready to be spoken. And when her name is mentioned, people will focus not on what was hidden, but on what has been discovered. Ultimately, her journey from the shadows of the archives to the hearts of millions will demonstrate that even the most closely guarded secrets can eventually come to light. And when they do, they cease to be secrets. They become gifts to be shared, lived, and carried forward. In time, the story of her long silence will be as significant as her words themselves. People will recognize in it a mirror of their own times of waiting, when certain truths could not yet be voiced, when they had to be protected in silence until the world was ready to hear. Mary's patience, enduring through the centuries, will offer comfort, a reminder that timing is as crucial as the message itself. Her words will not be confined to churches, they will reach places far from stained glass and ancient stones. In fields and markets, libraries and hospitals, her voice will be present, reminding us that faith is not limited to sacred spaces, but lives wherever there is love, courage, and hope. The power of her presence will be found in its clarity, humanity, and endurance. Pilgrims will continue to flock to Rome, drawn by the grandeur of the Vatican. Yet some will arrive with a quieter purpose, to find the corner of the archives where the cedar compartment once stood. Though the compartment is gone, they will pause, perhaps touching the wall or standing in silence, as if listening for a faint echo. And maybe they will sense it, not as a sound, but as a subtle awareness that what was once protected then lives everywhere. The Vatican will still guard many secrets, but the release of her writings will signal a quiet transformation. The archivists will come to realize that the silence they preserve is not always meant to last forever. They will see that some truths are like seeds, needing a season of rest before they can grow. Her story will become part of the Church's living memory, not just as a rediscovered text, but as a pivotal moment when history reached across centuries to bring her voice into the present. Its survival will seem miraculous to many, yet also inevitable, as if no lock or chest could have kept it hidden. As the years go by, her words will remain steadfast, just as they were when they left the archives. They will speak to seekers, doubters, and those who simply need to remember that truth, once set free, does not fade. It endures, it moves, and it waits for the next heart ready to receive it. In this way, Mary Magdalene will never again be relegated to the shadows. Her place will be among the voices that continue to shape faith, not as a figure remembered in silence, but as a living presence, guiding with the same gentle strength that has always defined her. Her presence will become a constant in the spiritual landscape, like a star that has always shone, but is only now fully visible. Generations will grow up speaking her name without hesitation, not as a mystery shrouded in secrecy, but as a trusted voice woven into the history of faith. Her writings will rest on shelves beside the most cherished scriptures, their pages worn from use, their words underlined and read aloud in moments when courage is needed. Artists will return to her image again and again, sometimes seeing her as a hopeful young woman walking dusty roads, sometimes as a wise elder whose hands have known both pain and grace. In music, poetry and prayer, she will continue to walk among those who seek, no longer limited to a single interpretation. The Vatican archives will remain a place of profound silence, but her story will linger there like a gentle warmth. Archivists will continue their work among the drawers and shelves, but with the knowledge that even the most protected treasures can one day be shared. When they pass the spot where the cedar compartment once stood, perhaps they will pause, feeling not loss, but fulfillment, the satisfaction of a duty completed after centuries of care. Beyond Rome, her voice will travel on, reaching villages that have never seen a cathedral and cities where church bells no longer ring. Her message will be heard in the open air at dawn, among bustling crowds at midday, and in quiet homes lit only by a candle. Everywhere, it will carry the same message it always has, a message of steadfast love, trust, and hope that endures through the longest nights. The centuries of silence will be remembered, but not as a wound. Instead, they will be seen as the long pause before a new beginning, like still water before the first ripple. People will understand that some truths are not lost when hidden. They simply wait for the right moment to do the most good. And in the hearts of those who read her, she will remain close. Her voice will not fade with time, for it has already proven it can withstand 2,000 years. It will move into the future, step by step, carried by everyone who hears it and chooses to pass it on. Thus, the story of Mary Magdalene will never again be locked away. It will live where it was always meant to, among the people. Even centuries from now, when the memory of how her words were revealed has faded into legend, her writings will continue to breathe with a life of their own. They will be read by voices yet unborn, in languages not yet spoken, and will carry the same enduring warmth. The ink on the original pages may fade, but the truth they hold will be passed from hand to hand, from heart to heart, as naturally as light passes from one candle to another. In quiet villages, elders will tell her story to children gathered around them, describing the long years of silence and the day her voice finally returned to the light. They will speak of patience, faith, and the belief that no truth worth keeping is ever truly lost. Some children will hear it as a bedtime story, others as a lesson in history, but all will feel the same wonder that these words have travelled so far to reach them. By then, the Vatican will have changed in many ways. New popes will have come and gone, new archives will have been filled, and perhaps other long-hidden secrets will have been revealed. Yet among the archivists, her story will remain a touchstone. It will be silent proof that their work of preserving, protecting, and waiting can one day lead to something greater than they ever imagined. Pilgrims will continue to journey to Rome, some to marvel at the basilicas, others to pause in the simple space where the cedar compartment once stood. They will stand there for a moment, perhaps closing their eyes, feeling the strange nearness of a woman who once walked the dusty roads of Galilee, and whose words now circle the globe. In this way, Mary Magdalene will belong to all who seek her, whether they come with faith, curiosity, or simply in search of a voice that speaks to the quiet places of the soul. Her presence will not demand attention, it will invite it. She will not shout to be heard, she will wait, as always, for those ready to listen. And in the end, this may be her greatest gift. Not the mystery of centuries spent in silence, but the constancy of her voice once it returned, a voice that proves some truths do not weaken with time. They grow stronger, waiting until the world is ready, and then, when they finally emerge, they remain. Her voice will settle into the world like a familiar melody, one that seems to have always been there, just beneath the surface. It will be quoted without fanfare, in books, letters, and everyday speech. Its origin sometimes forgotten, but its presence never diminished. People will speak her words in moments of happiness, in times of grief, and in the silences where meaning is sought. Her story will also serve as a reminder that history is not a closed book. The faithful and the curious will look at the vast Vatican archives and wonder what other voices might still be resting there. They will imagine drawers full of scrolls, rooms heavy with the weight of centuries and truths that, like hers, may one day come to light. Mary's journey from silence to speech will become a symbol of hope for those who believe that no truth can be buried forever. In churches, her image will gradually change. She will still be depicted in moments of devotion, but more often she will be shown in action. As she teaches, speaks, and walks with others, her presence will be woven into the great tapestry of the early church, not as a secondary figure, but as one of its living pillars. And in the archives themselves, a quiet reverence will remain for the place where the cedar compartment once stood. New archivists, trained to care for fragile history, will hear her story from their first day. They will learn how patience and protection preserved her words for centuries, and how the time finally came when that patience gave way to sharing. The lesson will be clear. Some treasures must be guarded, but none are meant to remain locked away forever. Far from Rome, her voice will continue to travel, crossing oceans and deserts, carried in pages, in recordings, and in the hearts of... Inside those ancient walls, she will quietly remind the archivists and scholars that the treasures they safeguard are not meant to be hidden forever, but to be revealed when the moment is right. She will show them that the worth of a truth lies not in its secrecy, but in the brilliance it brings to those who receive it. And far from the heart of Rome, in places untouched by grand cathedrals, her message will continue to echo. A fisherman on a lonely shore, a teacher in a modest classroom, a grandmother soothing a child to sleep. Each will share her story in their own way. Her words will travel freely, without locks or fear of being lost again. In this way, Mary Magdalene's long passage, from obscurity to being spoken of, will find its true destination, in the hearts of those who need her most. As long as her words are spoken, she will remain present, walking beside those who listen, her testimony as vivid and steadfast as when it first re-emerged. Years will become centuries, and her message will flow gently into the lives of those who hear it, not as a rare artifact, but as a living breath of faith. Her story will be told at weddings, whispered at bedsides, carried by travellers far from home. Her testimony will know no boundaries, no locked doors, no single keeper. It will belong to all, as free as the wind beneath the open sky. The fragrant wooden vessel will linger in memory, a symbol of the patience and care that shielded it through the long night of history. Over time, its details may blur. Some will picture it adorned with sacred carvings, others as plain and simple. But its appearance will matter less than the truth it protected, the gift it waited to share. It will stand as a reminder that the greatest treasures are not hidden to be denied, but to be given when most needed. Within the Vatican, her name will be spoken with ease. Her writings will be studied alongside those of the apostles. Pilgrims will come to the archives not just to marvel at the past, but to sense the presence of a testimony that once rested in those silent chambers. Archivists will recount her story as they guide visitors, and though many mysteries will remain on the shelves, her release will be a beacon of hope for what else may one day be revealed. Her influence will reach the farthest corners of the earth. Desert villages, mountain towns, bustling cities. Her words will find listeners everywhere. They will be read by candlelight in quiet monasteries and spoken aloud in busy markets by those who know them by heart. No distance, language, or barrier will stop her words from spreading further. As generations pass, the story of her being forgotten will seem less like a loss and more like a promise fulfilled. The years spent in darkness will be seen not as wasted, but as a time of gathering strength. When people speak of her, it will not be as a secret, but as a return, a moment when light pierced the darkness and brought her back to the world. Mary Magdalene will never again be a figure on the margins. She will be seen, heard, and remembered for what she truly was, a witness among the first, a guide for those who followed, a presence that endures. In this way, her journey will never truly end, for once truth finds a home among people, it walks with them always. Her testimony will continue, not as a distant echo, but as a companion to all who listen. Her words will be spoken in the quiet of morning prayers, repeated on long journeys, and woven into the gentle stories told at day's end. The tone will always be the same, calm, steady, and filled with a warmth that transcends time. The Vatican will remain a place of deep mystery, but the unveiling of her words will be remembered as one of its most human moments, not through grand ceremonies, but through the simple act of opening a vessel and letting a testimony breathe again. Archivists will pass on her story as a cherished lesson, reminding each other that preserving history is only part of their duty. The other part is knowing when the world is ready to receive it. Artists will continue to be inspired by her. They will carve her in stone, paint her with delicate hues, write about her in poetry and drama. Each new work will not try to define her completely, no art could, but will reveal a facet of her existence and worth. Through these creations, she will continue to meet new eyes, ears, and hearts. Her journey will also reshape how people view being forgotten. It will no longer be seen only as absence, but as a period of waiting, a time when truths gather strength before coming to light. The long centuries of her quiet rest will become part of her power, proof that truth does not fade with time. It endures and sometimes grows stronger. Far from Rome, in places where her name was once unknown, she will become a familiar presence. Her words will be read under starry skies, in dim hospital rooms, in fields where only the wind is heard. They will speak to loneliness, fear, and hope, always carrying the sense that she walks close to the listener. In this way, Mary Magdalene's story will never truly end. The fragrant wooden vessel may be empty, the parchment safe in the world's hands, but her testimony will continue to move, quietly, faithfully, endlessly, through the lives of all who choose to listen. For once a truth is freed from darkness, it cannot return. It lives in the light, where it always belonged. In the centuries ahead, her words will be so deeply woven into daily life that no one will question her place. They will be spoken alongside scripture in churches, recited at family gatherings, written in letters of comfort during mourning. Even where faith is practiced in secret, her testimony will be quietly passed from person to person, a thread of light through the darkness. The Vatican will endure, as it has for generations. Its walls will guard both known treasures and hidden secrets. But within those halls, her story will always be told with a certain tenderness. Archivists will speak of her not just as a figure from the past, but as a presence they once protected for the world. They will remember the day her testimony emerged from oblivion, carrying that memory as a silent blessing. Over time, the fragrant wooden vessel will become more legend than relic. Its details will blur in the telling. Some will imagine it ornate, others humble. Whatever its imagined form, it will remain a symbol of patience, care, and the trust that the right moment always arrives. Her image will continue to evolve in art, appearing not only in moments of devotion, but in scenes of conversation, teaching, and travel, the living face of thought and purpose. Writers will give her a voice in their stories, letting her speak again and again in new ways, always with the same steadfast truth that first emerged from the archives. For those who hear her for the first time, whether in a small church, a home, or the quiet of their own heart, there will be a sense of intimacy, as if she is speaking directly to them. That closeness will be her greatest strength, the reason her words will never fade. Ultimately, Mary Magdalene's story will not be remembered as a tale of something lost and found, but as the journey of a testimony that waited, endured, and returned, not for one place or people, but for the whole world. Once it returned, it moved freely, carrying the same trust it always held. Her words will pass so naturally from one life to another that no one will see them as ancient. They will be alive, present, meant for the moment they are heard. A student reading late at night will find comfort in her words. An old man by the window in winter will repeat her phrases like a prayer. Her testimony will belong to each listener personally, as if it was always meant for them. In towns far from Rome, where the Vatican is just a name in books, her presence will be just as real. Travellers will carry her words across mountains, deserts, and seas, and they will be welcomed as old friends around hearths, in classrooms, and in fields. Her message will take root wherever it lands. Every land it touches will give it a new shade, but its essence will remain unchanged. The Vatican will continue to guard countless mysteries in the years ahead, but the story of that revelation will survive as a quiet whisper among those ancient walls. Archivists will walk the corridors between shelves and boxes, knowing that what they hold may one day speak again. That cedar drawer, whether real or shaped by memory, will become an icon they carry within, a reminder that their task is not only about the past, but about preparing for those yet to come. Her figure will remain alive in art, but no creation will ever fully capture her. Painters will depict her by rivers, among crowds, in silent prayer. Poets will give her voice to verses filled with tenderness and strength. Musicians will turn her words into melodies that rise and fall like steady breathing. Those who discover her for the first time will not dwell on the centuries of silence. They will feel only the warmth, the calm, the assurance her voice brings. This is how she will remain, not as a distant fragment of history, but as a living presence. This is how Mary Magdalene will continue to move through the world, her words passed from person to person, soul to soul. The silence that once surrounded her will become only a faint echo, part of the journey, but not its end. For when a truth finally comes to light, it chooses to stay, held by those who see in it a piece of their own hope. Over time, her voice will become part of the world's collective memory, as constant as the sound of a bell at dusk. Wherever one goes, there will always be someone who knows her words, someone who has carried them through joy and sorrow. For those who repeat them, they will not be mere memories, but a living presence, steady and close. The Vatican will continue its mission, protecting its endless rooms, each lined with shelves heavy with time. Yet that cedar drawer will remain a quiet flame among them. Archivists will tell newcomers how it protected a truth the world had to wait for, and how, when the time was right, that truth became a shared heritage. The lesson will be clear and lasting. Some voices are not meant to stay hidden forever. Far from Rome, her presence will become part of daily life. Farmers will repeat her words as they work the land. Sailors will remember them at sea. Children will hear them before sleep, and as adults will pass them on, sometimes without knowing where they first heard them. Her voice will not need cathedrals or polished floors. It will live just as strongly in a whisper among friends or in the quiet thoughts of someone alone. Artists will always return to her. Each era will see her with its own eyes, but all will recognize the same spirit, a spirit that loved without fear and spoke with unwavering truth. Some will paint her in the bright colors of dawn, others in the gentle shades of dusk. Writers will give her new words, but within them will always echo those that first emerged from the long silence. For those who meet her for the first time, there will be a sense of recognition, as if they had been waiting for her all along. Her words will seem to reach them exactly where they are, speaking not of a distant past, but of a presence beside them. And so her journey will go on. The centuries of forgetting will fade, replaced by the constant movement of her voice in the world. She will walk through the ages as she once walked the roads of Galilee, steadfast, purposeful, always seeking those ready to listen. And when she finds them, she will stay, for a truth that has found a home in human hearts never leaves. Her words will move through the world with such ease that they will seem part of the natural rhythm of the seasons. People will stop thinking of them as something once hidden. They will simply become part of the air we breathe, present in moments. Within the Vatican walls, the cedar box gradually fades from conversation, yet it is never erased from the memories of those who traverse the endless archive corridors. For these keepers, it stands as a symbol of their true charge, not merely to safeguard paper and ink, but to protect truths, waiting for their time to emerge. It reminds them that their duty is not only to preserve the past, but to serve what is yet to come. Artists will continue to return to this theme, their depictions growing ever more diverse. Some will paint her walking among others, sharing her message with gentle assurance. Others will show her alone, a solitary figure beneath the open sky, her face aglow with the wisdom she bears. Each artwork will capture a fragment of the truth, but never its entirety, for she will always be more than any single image can express. For those hearing her for the first time, a hush will fall, as if the world itself pauses to listen. And when her voice ceases, her words will linger, settling softly in the mind like a light that never dims. Thus, Mary Magdalene's journey will never truly conclude. The silence that once enveloped her will become a faint memory, replaced by her living presence. She will move through the ages, not as a figure locked away in archives, but as a living voice, steady, familiar, and always near to those who know how to listen. Her words will endure in the most unexpected places, quietly entering moments that seem too small to hold something so enduring. A stranger comforting another will echo her words without knowing their origin. A letter found in an old drawer will reveal a phrase of hers that still feels fresh. A child learning to read will trace her sentences with a finger, sensing the shape of truths that have survived the centuries. The Vatican will continue to guard countless untold stories, but hers will remain the measure by which all others are imagined. As archivists pass those sealed drawers, they will pause, wondering what words lie dormant, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. They will realize that to protect something is not to bury it forever, but to help it find its freedom. The cedar box will live on in memory as proof of this lesson. Its influence will reach far beyond Rome, as constant as the tides. In mountain villages, along the coasts, and in bustling cities, her words will travel from person to person without fanfare. They will slip into sermons and popular songs, into intimate conversations and whispered thoughts before sleep. Artists will continue to pursue her image, not to confine her, but to rediscover her. Some will use colours reminiscent of sunlight on ancient stones. Others will carve her in wood warmed by human touch. Writers will lend her their voices in new tales, but the tone will remain calm, confident, and kind. Those who hear her for the first time will feel as if she has always been with them. Her words will not seem relics of the past, but will arise from that hidden place behind the heart where truths quietly take root. From that moment, she will no longer be a distant name. Mary Magdalene will remain alive in the world, not as a relic nor as a faded inscription in a forgotten book, but as a real presence for those who listen. The silence that once held her back will vanish, replaced by the persistent sound of her voice moving forward, step by step, into each new day. Her voice will flow through the centuries with the same gentle strength as water smoothing stone. She will not rush, nor seek attention, but every place she touches will bear her imprint. In marketplaces, her words will mingle with daily chatter. In fields at dusk, they will rise with the hum of insects and the wind in the wheat. In the quietest corners of homes, her words will rest like a gentle weight on the heart, offering comfort without demand. The Vatican will keep its endless shelves and secret compartments, but the memory of her freedom will flow like an underground river beneath daily routines. Archivists will speak her name softly, not as a secret, but as something newly sacred. The cedar box, though long empty, will still seem full to those who remember its contents. Far from Rome, her presence will take on new forms, even where cathedrals and shrines exist only in stories. Her voice will still be heard. A traveller might recite her words in a crowded tavern, and by morning they will have spread through the streets, passed along as naturally as a greeting. Soon, no one will recall who first heard her, for she will have become part of everyday speech, as if she had always been there. Artists will never cease searching for her. A painter will capture the way her hands move as she teaches. A sculptor will recreate the tilt of her head in thought. A poet will distill her patience into a single flowing line. Each creation will be unique, yet all will bear the mark of the same enduring truth. She was never meant to remain hidden. For those hearing her for the first time, there will be no sense of distance. The centuries will dissolve, and it will feel as if she speaks directly to them. Her voice will accompany them through their days, guiding their choices, remembered in hardship and cherished in quiet joy. Thus Mary Magdalene will remain alive, not confined to the pages where her words were found, but living in the hearts and voices of those who speak them. The silence that once concealed her will be nothing but a fading shadow. Her path forward will be open and endless, like a road beneath a Sunday morning sky. Her voice will slip into the most ordinary moments, so subtly they may go unnoticed, yet these will be the places where she takes deepest root. A worker resting under a tree will recall her words and feel peace. A grandmother stirring soup will hum a tune that once carried her message. A letter from afar will contain a phrase that feels newly written, though its journey began centuries ago. Within the Vatican, her story will remain a quiet reference. Archivists walking the marble halls will remember that archives are not just for keeping, but for returning. The cedar box will be mentioned less as an object and more as a symbol, evidence that patience, when nurtured, can be as powerful as action. In distant lands, Her voice will take on the local accent. In one place it may sound like waves against a dock, in another like footsteps on dusty roads. Yet everywhere it will retain its gentle strength, reminding us that truth travels best at the pace of the human heart. Artists will continue to find her in new ways. A mural on a weathered wall will show her teaching in a sunlit courtyard. A short poem hidden in a book will capture her essence in a few words. A song sung at night will carry her across a valley, unseen but deeply felt. Those who hear her for the first time will not think of archives or history, but will feel she speaks to their present moment. Her words will linger, resurfacing in quiet moments or before sleep. And so, Mary Magdalene will remain a living presence, her voice carried by countless unseen hands and hearts. The centuries of silence will fade, replaced by the ongoing movement of her truth through the lives of those who receive it. She will no longer belong to the shadows of the past, but to the light of the present and the promise of the future. Her words will pass from generation to generation like a well-trodden path, so familiar it seems part of the land itself. They will be spoken informally, in kitchens, on doorsteps, in the stillness of early morning. A father will share them with his son while repairing a net. A neighbour will offer them as comfort to someone grieving. A traveller will whisper them while watching the sunset, unaware they are part of something older than memory. In the Vatican, her return will be recounted less as a formal report and more as a gentle parable. Archivists will see her release as a lesson in balancing, holding on and letting go. The cedar box will remain an image in the mind, a symbol that the value of what is hidden lies not only in its protection but in the moment it is returned. In places untouched by grand basilicas, her voice will still rise. In a quiet mountain village, a teacher will recite her words learned in childhood. In a distant port, fishermen will sing them at dawn. Her voice will spread not by force, but by the gentle pull of truth that inspires people to carry it forward. Artists will continue to shape her presence in new ways. A painter may show her comforting someone, her gaze turned toward them. A sculptor may depict her walking, her clothes caught by an invisible breeze. Each new work will not try to capture her completely, but to keep her moving through time. Those who hear her for the first time will rarely know the long silence that came before. Instead, they will feel she has always been near, speaking with a voice that arrives exactly when needed. Thus, Mary Magdalene will continue to walk among the living, no longer tied to a place or to the pages where her words once rested. Her truth will move freely, crossing borders and centuries, as constant and inevitable as the earth's turning. Her words will be like water from an endless well. People will return to them again and again, finding both novelty and comfort. They will be spoken over the sick, carried by travellers, remembered in moments when no other words suffice. Even those who do not know her name will recognise her voice, woven into the language of daily life. Within the Vatican, her story will live quietly among those who walk the marble halls. New archivists will hear it from mentors in the dim light of the shelves, learning that archives are not just for holding the past, but for setting it free. The cedar box, though long empty, will still teach this lesson. In distant places, her voice will take on the colour of its surroundings. In the far north, it may be heard over the crackle of fire as snow piles against the windows. In warm coastal towns, it may drift on the breeze as neighbours chat. Whatever the setting, it will carry the same calm, unhurried tone. Artists will continue to turn to her, not out of duty, but because she seems to invite them. An embroidery may show her in daily life, not on a pedestal, but reaching out. A song may hold her words in a melody that lingers. Each creation will be another way her presence moves forward. For those hearing her for the first time, the moment will feel strangely familiar, as if they had always been waiting for it. Her words will settle where they are most needed, taking root quietly but deeply. From that day on, she will be with them, not as a distant figure, but as a living companion in their daily rhythm. Thus, Mary Magdalene's journey will never end. The silence that once surrounded her will become a distant shadow as her truth continues forward, step by step, in the hearts of those who listen. As long as they keep listening, she will never be far. Her voice will weave into the fabric of life, carried in the pauses between conversations and in the quiet moments at dawn or dusk. A shopkeeper sweeping at sunrise will recall a phrase without knowing why. A woman walking alone in a busy street will feel her words echo in her steps. A letter tucked into an old book will bring a phrase passed down gently, like a breath not held back. In the Vatican, the cedar box's story will be told not as an official account, but as a shared memory by the fire. A merchant busy with his scales in the gentle light of dawn, a sailor gazing at the horizon as the waves sway his vessel. Unknowingly, they will utter those words. They will come to them naturally, fitting seamlessly, like a well-worn path over ancient cobblestones. Within the Vatican, the memory of the cedar drawer will become a quiet code, spoken only among the archivists. They won't discuss official documents, but will communicate through gestures and stories, whispering as they move among the endless shelves. That memory will serve as a silent reminder that some secrets are best kept in the shadows until the world is ready for them. Her voice, her presence, will keep evolving, taking on the tone of every place she visits. In a chilly northern city, it will feel like the comfort of a fire on a cold night. In a seaside village, it will echo like the ebb and flow of the tide. The words will retain their essence, but will be coloured by their new surroundings, as if they had always belonged there. Artists will always be drawn back to her. Some will paint her alive, capturing her in a crowd, speaking with both her mind and her lips. Others will portray her lost in thought, as if listening to something invisible. Writers will place her in imagined or rediscovered scenes, always preserving the core of her truth. Those who hear her for the first time will often pause, struck by the odd sensation that they've known her all along. They won't know why, but her presence will linger, resurfacing whenever she's needed. Thus, Mary Magdalene will never be trapped in history, but will remain a living force in the present. The centuries of silence will become a gentle, fading shadow behind her. As her truth moves freely through the world, it will touch and transform those who listen in ways they'll never forget. Her words will flow through the ages like a quiet stream, changing with the times but always carrying the same clear message. They'll be spoken in moments of happiness and in times of hope, slipping naturally into the places where they're most needed. A farmer resting on his hoe at midday will murmur them without thinking. A pilgrim seated by the roadside will whisper them to the dust and the wind. A child hearing them for the first time will repeat them softly, as if sharing a secret. Within the Vatican, the cedar drawer will no longer be a display piece, but a memory to be handed down. Archivists will recount its story as a lesson in patience and care, explaining how a truth can wait centuries without losing its power. Passing countless other locked drawers, each holding its own silent secret, they'll wonder which one should be revealed next. Far from Rome, her voice will adapt to the rhythm of the lives it touches. On a wind-swept plain, it will echo in the deep songs of shepherds. In a lush valley, it will be heard in lullabies sung to newborns beneath the trees. Her words will find their place, as if they were written for those who hear them. Artists will keep her alive in their creations. A painter will depict her in a city skyline at dawn, her face turned toward the light. A sculptor will capture her in the moment before she speaks, holding the quiet weight of her truth. Writers will weave her into stories where her voice leads the chorus, just as it did in life. And those who hear her for the first time will feel a quiet certainty that she was meant to enter their lives. Her words will take root, as if they had always been there, perhaps from a deeper place. So, Mary Magdalene's journey will continue, her truth released from the centuries that once confined her. the silence behind her will fade, leaving only a breath. Ahead, an endless road will open, welcoming every place and every heart ready to receive her. Her voice will pass from one life to another, like a candle's flame, pass from hand to hand, each new bearer protecting its light. It will cross thresholds and doors, carried in greetings, farewells, and the small words exchanged in between. A fisherman repairing his nets at dawn will hum the rhythm of her phrases. A girl tending her grandmother's garden will repeat her words as if they were always part of the earth. In quiet chapels and busy streets alike, her truth will find its way, never forcing its pace. In the Vatican, the cedar drawer will be remembered not for what it held, but for what it released. Archivists will speak of it with a voice that is neither proud nor mournful, but respectful, as one honours a friend who has kept a sacred promise. Her image will serve as a reminder that time does not weaken truth, it prepares it. Far beyond Rome's walls, her voice will take on the character of each place it visits. In one corner of the world, it will blend with the sounds of market stalls opening at dawn. Elsewhere, it will rise in the voices gathered around a well. Her words will settle everywhere, always connected by an invisible thread that spans distances and generations. Artists will never tire of rediscovering her. A weaver will place her in a tapestry of earth and gold, not above, but among the people. A poet will distill her voice into a few lines that carry the weight of a lifetime. A musician will let her truth glide over a melody older than words. Those who meet her for the first time will feel something familiar, as if a long open circle has closed, as if they've been walking toward her all along. And once heard, she will remain, quietly returning to their thoughts just when she's needed. Thus, Mary Magdalene will continue to walk through the living world. No border, language, or era will confine her. The silence that once surrounded her will be only a distant echo. As her truth moves forward, steady and sure as the earth's turning, her words will take shape in the quiet moments of life, those that pass unnoticed but hold the deepest truths. They'll be whispered as bread bakes at dawn, as a fire is kindled on a cold evening, as friends reunite after work. A passerby may catch only a fragment of her words, but will carry it through the night, like a seed planted without their knowing. In the Vatican, the cedar drawer will serve as a silent touchstone. Archivists will think of it as they open a shelf or close a ledger, knowing that behind every closed drawer something waits to be revealed. One day they'll realise that legacy is not about hiding, but about protecting until the right moment. Her voice will keep changing, adapting to every life it touches. Here, it will rise in a lullaby's murmur. There, it will flow in the slow rhythm of a blessing over a shared meal. Each time it's heard, it will feel perfectly suited to the moment, yet its core will remain unchanged. Artists will return to her again and again, drawn by an invisible thread. A painter will capture her listening more than speaking, light falling softly on her face. A sculptor may leave her form unfinished, as if to remind us her story is still unfolding. Writers will give her voice to characters who don't know her, but whose lives are changed by her touch. For those hearing her for the first time, there will be no sense of distance. It will feel as if she's always been there, waiting for the right moment to speak. And once she has, her words will follow them, not as a burden, but as a gentle presence guiding their way. So, Mary Magdalene will remain, her truth moving forward with the quiet persistence of the wind in the olive trees. The silence that once confined her will dissolve, leaving only the echo of her voice, familiar, persistent, always ready to bridge the gap to those willing to listen. Her words will slip into the most subtle moments, often unnoticed, yet it is there they will endure the longest. They'll pass through silent streets, along fences at dusk, among strangers sharing benches beneath the first drops of rain. Between 2 or 3 people who need no words, a single phrase may be spoken, but it will be enough to carry its meaning through the ages. In the Vatican, the cedar drawer will no longer be touched, but will live on in the memories of those who know its story. It will exist in their thoughts, proof that patience can guard a treasure without ever weakening, that centuries of silence cannot diminish a truth meant to be heard. Archivists will pass by it in silence, each holding the quiet hope of one day being the guardian of a secret worthy of sharing with the world. Her voice will find its way into every corner of human life, in lantern-lit cities, in late-night market conversations, in the open air of remote valleys where shepherds call their flocks. It will cross oceans in sailors' songs, tucked into pockets, carried by the wind, until no one remembers when it began. Artists will continue to see her, not as a single figure, but as a presence that transforms with every new vision. One will place her in a crowd, faces lit by light. Another will show her walking alone by the water, the horizon before her. Musicians will weave her voice into melodies that linger long after the last note. For those hearing her for the first time, it will feel less like a discovery and more like remembering something long forgotten. Her words will settle in minds and hearts, resurfacing exactly when needed. Thus, Mary Magdalene will keep moving forward, her truth freed from the hidden drawer, now carried by countless voices across the world. The silence that once surrounded her will be only a distant shadow, while her presence continues to walk this earth, steady, near, offered to all who open their hearts. Her words will blend with the rhythm of daily life, so subtly that no one can say when they took root. They'll be spoken in the murmurs of morning, in the hush of evening prayers, in the shared silence between two souls who need nothing more. Her phrases will travel from kitchen tables to garden paths, from market stalls to narrow alleys lit by lamps, quietly passing from one heart to another. Within the Vatican, the cedar drawer will remain a story told in hushed tones. It will be passed to new archivists, not as a lesson, but as a reminder. Every treasure needs care and patience. They'll learn to see the archives not as a place of stillness, but as a space where truth waits for the right moment to emerge. Her voice will keep taking on the shape of the places it reaches. In a seaside village, it will become part of the song that rises with the tide. In a mountain town, it will echo in the slow steps along winding paths. Wherever it's heard, it will feel as if it truly belongs. Yet its heart will remain unchanged. Artists will keep finding her in unexpected ways. A painter will place her beneath a blossoming tree, her gaze serene. A sculptor will leave her face half in shadow, as if she exists both here and elsewhere. A poet will capture her presence in a single deep verse. For those hearing her for the first time, it will feel as if she's always been just at the edge of their vision. Her words will stay with them, quietly surfacing in their choices, in long waits, or in the silences before dawn. And so, Mary Magdalene will continue her journey. Her truth carried by voices, memories, images, and songs. The silences that once held her will have vanished, replaced by a constant presence, free to move through the world, touching those who listen, walking beside them toward what lies ahead. Her words will keep weaving into the fabric of life like a coloured thread in a cloth, visible only when the light catches it. They'll be spoken on doorsteps, at moments of parting, in fields scented with rain, and in small rooms where a single candle faces the dark. Even in fragments, her words will carry their full meaning, for her voice needs no complete sentences to be understood. In the Vatican, the cedar drawer will remain a quiet legend for those who walk the marble halls. It will be remembered as the place that protected a voice through the centuries, not to bury it, but to keep it whole. Those who watch over the archives will sometimes glance at it in greeting, knowing its emptiness is proof of its greatest purpose. Her voice will stop changing for those who receive it. In a desert city, it will follow the slow rhythm of a storyteller at dusk. In a sleeping port, it will blend with the creak of boats in the water. Everywhere it will seem present, its Even when fragmented, these words retain their meaning, for their truth isn't bound to complete sentences. Within the Vatican, the cedar box will remain undisturbed, yet it will linger in the minds of those familiar with its tale. It won't be remembered as a mere container of mysteries, but as a steadfast sentinel guarding something valuable, preserved until the right moment arrives. Archivists, as their fingers graze the corners of sealed chests or locked drawers, will recall it and wonder what other stories still wait in the darkness. Its voice will shift as it finds new homes. In a coastal village, perhaps it will arrive with the waves, weaving through ropes and whispered among boats swaying in the harbour. In a mountain hamlet, it may echo in the wind that slips through stone walls. Wherever it is heard, it will feel as though it has always belonged, woven into the daily lives of those who speak it. Artists will continue to seek it out, not to capture it entirely, but to let it move through their creations. A painter might place it among others, turned toward a companion in conversation. A sculptor could give it the posture of someone about to step forward, a gesture held in suspense, brimming with quiet intent. Musicians will embed its words in melodies that travel far, sung by voices that never saw its face but sensed its essence. For those who encounter it for the first time, it won't feel like a discovery, but a recognition. Its voice will settle softly in their minds, surfacing in silent moments or when decisions must be made. This is how Mary Magdalene will endure. Her truth, released from the stillness of the past, will move freely through the world. The silences that once confined her will vanish, leaving only the gentle ripples of her presence, steady, loyal, and close to anyone willing to listen. Her words will become as natural as the air you breathe, so familiar that you'll forget there was ever a time without them. They'll be spoken over tea on a shaded veranda, in the quiet exchanges of neighbours working side by side, in the private words shared by strangers on a long journey. Even unspoken, they will circulate in hearts, ready to rise when needed. Within the Vatican, the cedar box will remain motionless, yet it will live on in the thoughts of those who protect the archives. They'll see it as proof that waiting can be an act of faith, that to protect is not to imprison. Young archivists will hear its story, and a quiet sense of duty will settle within them, realizing they too are keepers of voices that one day will seek the light. Her voice will drift far from Rome's marble and gold. In a desert camp beneath a star-filled sky, it will mingle with the last confidences shared among travellers. In a busy port, it will float in the shouts of dock workers above the sounds of water and wood. Wherever it travels, it will take on the shape of its new home, never losing its origin. Artists will keep finding it in their work. A painter may show her kneeling to speak with a child, her face lit by the evening sun. A sculptor might capture her mid-turn just before she speaks. A musician will let her voice soar in a single clear note, holding the listener's attention until it fades. For those hearing it for the first time, it will feel less like meeting a stranger and more like remembering an old friend. Her words will be carried effortlessly, as naturally as breathing. And so, Mary Magdalene's journey continues, her truth unbound, her presence alive in countless quiet moments across the world. The silence that once held her back will become only a shadow behind her, while ahead an endless road opens, ready for every heart that chooses to listen. Her words will slip into the pauses of daily life, light but leaving a lasting impression. They'll be spoken as bread rises, as fields are tended in the morning, as lanterns are lit at dusk. They won't need grand declarations, for their power lies in their gentleness. In the Vatican, the cedar box will remain in its place, unmoving but never forgotten. Those who pass by will sense a faint shiver, as if the air around it holds the memory of centuries of patience. It will not be seen as a relic of secrets, but as a vessel of trust, a sign that some truths are quietly prepared before being revealed. Her voice will take on the hues of every place it reaches. In a seaside town, it will blend with the songs of fishermen at dawn, In a high village on a plateau, it will float in the crisp air between homes and vineyards. Everywhere, it will feel as though it has always been present, as if spoken since the beginning. Artists will return to it time and again, discovering something new each time. A painter may place her at the edge of a crowd, her gaze fixed on a single person. A sculptor will show her hands open and empty, ready to give or receive. A musician will weave her words into a chorus that repeats, comforting in its familiarity. Those who hear it for the first time may feel as if they're hearing something they've always known. Her words will take root like seeds, invisible but certain to bloom in time. Thus, Mary Magdalene will keep walking in the world, her truth carried by voices, gestures, and the quiet connections between people. The silence that once separated her will become a memory, while her presence remains near, constant, and unending. Her words will move quietly, like the shadow of clouds over a field, touching lives without fanfare. They'll be spoken in kitchens where soup simmers, in gardens where hands tend the soil, and in the silent understanding between friends who need no words. Even as a simple phrase, they will carry the weight of all that has come before. Inside the Vatican, the cedar box will remain untouched, but those who know its story will pass by with reverence. It will be seen not just as wood and hinges, but as a witness to the long patience of truth. Archivists will see it as a silent, fulfilled promise, a reminder that archives do more than preserve the past. They prepare it to step into the light. Her voice will continue to echo in the places it visits. In a riverside city, it will blend with the gentle rhythm of water on the shore. In a mountain pass, it will travel with the deep calls of shepherds returning home. Each time it appears, it will feel perfectly at home, as if it sprang from the earth itself. Artists will seek her out again. A painter might place her beneath an olive tree, her gaze fixed on something unseen. A sculptor will capture her in motion, her dress caught by a soft breeze. A composer will write her voice into music so delicate it's almost silence. Yet it fills the space completely. For those who hear it for the first time, it will be like finding a path in the woods, both new and strangely familiar. They'll carry her words with ease, returning to them without prompting. So, Mary Magdalene's journey goes on, her truth released from years of quiet seclusion. The silences that once surrounded her will fade away, while her presence moves forward, steady as the changing seasons, ready to meet anyone who pauses to listen. Her words will move with the subtlety of cloud shadows, touching lives without ever announcing their arrival. They'll be spoken in kitchens where soup simmers, in gardens where hands turn the earth, and in the calm of a shared glance between friends who need no explanation. Even as brief phrases, they hold the full weight of history. Within the Vatican, the cedar box will remain untouched, yet those who know its story will pass by with a certain reverence. It will be seen as more than just wood and hinges, but as a testament to the enduring patience of truth. Archivists will view it as a silent, fulfilled promise, a reminder that the work of archives is not only to safeguard the past, but to prepare it to emerge into the light. Her voice will continue to take on the forms of the places it visits. In a riverside city, it will blend with the steady rhythm of water on the banks. In a mountain pass, it will travel with the deep songs of shepherds returning with their flocks. Each time it emerges, it will feel perfectly at home, as if born from the land itself. Artists will keep searching for her. A painter might place her beneath the shade of an olive tree, her eyes turned towards something invisible. A sculptor will capture her in full motion, her dress caught by a gentle wind. A composer will write her voice into music so subtle it's almost silence, yet it fills the entire space. For those who hear it for the first time, it will be like discovering a path in the woods, unknown, yet familiar. They'll carry her words with ease, returning to them without being called. And so, Mary Magdalene's journey continues, her truth finally freed from years of quiet silence. The silence that once surrounded her will dissolve, while her presence moves forward, as constant as the return of morning light, ready to meet anyone who stops, even briefly, to listen. Her words will pass through the world like sunlight filtering through leaves, touching many places without lingering in one. They'll be spoken while drawing water from a well, tending a quiet fire before dawn, or pausing on a doorstep to watch rain fall on a silent street. Even in their simplest form, they'll retain the warmth and clarity of the days they were first spoken. Inside the Vatican, the cedar box will rest quietly, its surface polished by time and the eyes of those who know its story. For the guardians of the archives, it will be more than an object. It will remind them of the importance of faith in what is unseen. They'll understand that its stillness was not neglect, but a protective act that allowed a voice to survive untouched. Her voice will keep changing with the places it reaches. In a lively market, it will slip into greetings exchanged between stalls. In a remote mountain village, it will be felt in whispered prayers, carried by the wind. Wherever it is found, it will seem to have always belonged to the land and its people. Artists will find her again. A painter might show her in a moment of stillness, her head slightly tilted, as if listening to a song only she can hear. A sculptor will capture her in a burst of laughter, her dress alive with movement. A musician will hide her words in a gentle melody, discovered only after many listenings. For those who hear it for the first time, there will be a quiet certainty, as if a door has opened to a room they always sensed existed, though they'd never entered. Her words will become part of them, resurfacing in moments of need, not as a command, but as a gentle gift. Thus, Mary Magdalene's journey continues, her truth forever released from the weight of years of silence. The shadow of that stillness will fade behind her, while ahead, an endless open road awaits, ready to carry her voice wherever hearts remain open to listen. Thank you for staying with us until the end. If Mary Magdalene's story or the mysteries hidden in the Vatican archives have sparked a thought or memory, please share it in the comments. I truly enjoy reading your reflections, and if you haven't already, subscribe and click the bell so you won't miss our next journey into history. Stay curious, rest well, and see you soon for the next chapter.